And Donald Trump and Nikki Haley will be facing off tomorrow in South Carolina's first in the South Republican presidential primary. It's the first head-to-head matchup for the last two remaining major candidates since the New Hampshire primary a month ago. The contest does take place in Haley's home turf, where she was the governor for 6 years. But despite her history, she faces strong headwinds in a state where Trump has held a substantial lead in recent polls. So what's at stake in tomorrow's matchup? Joining me right now to discuss is Meyer, who is a lecturer at USC Department of Political Science. Again, thank you so much for stopping by.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, we had you there for the Democratic presidential primary. Now we're here for the Republican presidential primary. So the first question I got to ask, what is at stake, especially when it comes to the delegates?
Well, what's at stake is Nikki Haley's ability to continue to compete. Right now it's down to two, Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. One of these two is going to get the nomination to be the Republican candidate for president. And to do that, you need to get a majority of the delegates. The Republican convention, there's going to be over 2,000 delegates awarded, and these delegates will be the ones who will cast one vote, and they will decide who the nominee will be. Whoever gets a majority, that's the nominee. So to be the nominee, you need to get about 1,200 delegates total. South Carolina's, there's going to be a number of delegates up for grabs. Not a ton compared to bigger states, but the key is, if you're Nikki Haley, your strategy is how are you going to collect enough delegates to get to that 1,200 threshold. This is her home state.
Right.
If she does not win here or get very close to winning, where is she going to get up enough delegates? Are we going to expect that she will get more delegates than Donald Trump in Texas, in California, in Ohio? How could you make that claim if she doesn't do well in her home state, given that she's already performed not great in other states, such as New Hampshire and Iowa so far? So for her to get that chance, to even have a remote possibility of getting that 1,200, she needs to get a good chunk of the delegates in South Carolina.
And I mean, we just talked about it with what the polls are saying is Trump having this substantial lead. So in your opinion, does Nikki Haley stand a chance tomorrow?
Possible.
Okay.
Not a great chance, but possible. Here's why. The polls have Donald Trump up by about 25, 30 points, depending on what poll you look at. Now, Donald Trump was also up big in Iowa and New Hampshire, but he slightly underperformed his polling in both states. If that were to happen again, Nikki Haley could pull that margin a little bit closer. Then maybe she gets a little bit of an extra boost from being the hometown girl. That could help her out a little bit. But the big wild card is Democratic voters. The Democratic primary that happened a few weeks ago, turnout was not great. Only about 131,000 Democrats came out to vote. Your typical South Carolina Democratic primary, we're usually talking about 300, 400,000 Democratic votes.
Okay.
So there's hundreds of thousands of voters who typically vote in the South Carolina primary. Even though they're Democrats, there are people who probably don't like Donald Trump very much. If you're Nikki Haley, you have a path to victory if you can get a big chunk of those Democrats to vote for you.
So, I mean, what would then Trump consider a big win if he does win?
Well, looking back historically at the South Carolina Republican primary, the best that any non-incumbent candidate has ever done is Ronald Reagan getting 55% back in 1980.
Okay.
Polls right now have Donald Trump at that 55%, even getting over 60% right now.
Wow.
If you're Donald Trump, what better way to claim victory than to say, I beat Nikki Haley on her home turf, and not only that, I got the biggest landslide of a non-incumbent. I did better than Ronald Reagan. How can you deny that pitch if that happens?
Interesting. Okay, so that could be kind of the pitch for all of this too. So I guess then what could Haley be doing next? Are we kind of pushing for Super Tuesday?
Nikki Haley has said multiple times that she is in the race at least through Super Tuesday, and she's indicated she will be in there longer. Will that actually happen? Because candidates who drop out always, right before they drop out, say they're in it for the long haul. Now, she's certainly already campaigning in those early states. She's had ad buys, she's hired campaign staff in these states, ranging from California to Vermont. So she's putting her money there. So by all accounts, she is going to compete through Super Tuesday. What will happen after Super Tuesday? Remember that whole march, that 1,200 delegates number?
Right.
Almost 900 total delegates will be awarded on Super Tuesday alone. So if Nikki Haley wants any chance, she needs to do pretty well on Super Tuesday. If Donald Trump wins a landslide on Super Tuesday, he might almost have the nomination wrapped up by the end of that day.
Yeah, it all comes down to the amount of delegates.
Exactly, it does.
All
That
right.
1,200, that's the number you have to keep in mind. So even though it's not been a couple of the races so far, New Hampshire, Iowa, not a ton of delegates have been awarded yet. That's coming very, very quickly.
Very soon. Chase, thank you so much again for stopping by. We always appreciate your insights.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Of course.